Hello, good afternoon, friends of Jakarta Content Week. I'm Florentina Niradewi from Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm also co-founder and chief executive officer of Ide Laju and TEDx ambassador for Indonesia and Southeast Asia. I will be the host for this session. Jakarta Content Week, or JAC10, is an international event comprising conferences, workshop, seminars, festivals, and exhibitions organized by Frankfurter Buchmesse and 17,000 Pulau Imaji Foundation. JAC10 brings together and showcases different creative industries with a focus on the Asia-Pacific region. Through its conferences and seminars, the event aims to foster and facilitate business between different creative sectors and different regions, while the festival aspect aims to attract, support, and entertain the general public. JAC10 celebrates its premiere in 2020 and is held digitally due to the COVID-19 safety protocols. You may use hashtags JAC10, hashtag Litbit, and hashtag Bringing Worlds Together. So about the session, accessibility is hugely important for educated societies and for fostering research and maintaining a democratic system. Here, with the session, we will be focusing on the accessibility of content, especially for visually impaired and blind members of society. So for the first part, we're going to have a welcome message by Hugo Setzer, the President, International Publishers Association.
Welcome to our breakout session, Spotlight on Europe, the European Accessibility Act, EAA. Thank you very much for having us here at JAC10, the very first Jakarta Content Week 2020. In the next 30 minutes, we want to give you an overview and an idea of what is going on in the European publishing and book sector around the very important topic that is accessibility. Where do we stand in Europe? How do and should stakeholders in our sector prepare? And what are the learnings and advices we can give you who are following this session today? My name is Christina Kramer. Within the German Booksellers and Publishers Association, I'm responsible for European and international affairs. I will exchange with three experts from Europe who are Anne Bergmann-Tahan from the Federation of European Publishers in Brussels, Belgium, Cristina Musinelli from Fondationalia in Milan, Italy, as well as Thomas Kalisch from the German Center for Accessible Reading in Leipzig. We will start with a presentation of the European Accessibility Act and the concrete requirements for the book sector. We'll continue then by an insight in the reality of visually impaired persons in Europe, and we'll hear then how our sector can best contribute to the reality of accessible reading in the future. Let me first introduce Anne Bergmann-Tahan. Anne is the director of the Federation of European Publishers in Brussels that represents 29 publishers associations across Europe. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you for the invitation. This is a topic we've been working as European publishers for a long time, and I think now we're getting to some tangible results, which is really nice.
Yeah. I mean, you have been following the topic accessibility for quite some years now, on an international level with the Marrakesh Treaty, but also on a European level with the European Accessibility Act. Our friends and colleagues who are listening to us at JAC10 are certainly familiar with the Marrakesh Treaty when it comes to accessibility. Is it possible to explain in a nutshell what the Marrakesh Treaty contains and then more in detail what the more recent legislative piece in Europe, the European Accessibility Act, is all about, by focusing on the requirements for our sector, for the book sector.
So I'm going to try to do it in a nutshell. I'm not sure I'll succeed, but then I'm sure that Thomas and Christina would add to it afterwards. So Marrakesh, I mean, it's called Marrakesh, but it's actually a WIPO, so the World Intellectual Property Organization Treaty, is an international treaty that deals with exception to copyright. And those are limited to exceptions that allow people with visual impairment to have access to print works. So that's quite somehow limited in scope. It was, I have to say, I forgot the date of the adoption, but it was implemented in EU law in 2018, in the European Union law, and it basically permits not just the national organization that provide access for people with visual impairment, but also that when they have adapted a work to permit that access, they share it with other authorized entity within the European Union. We have a directive for that, and then we have a regulation to cover everything which is beyond Europe, so that it isn't limited to the European Union. It is certainly a useful path for those organizations that don't have to ask express permission to adapt the work. It has to be said that this is to adapt the work when in a version that is not accessible for people with visual impairment. But when the European Union decided to look into a more mainstream requirement, or more mainstream requirements for the a large number of sectors, they started the work on the European Accessibility Act. The difference is that instead of waiting and allowing organizations that are serving the needs of people with visual disability or impairments, no, we are putting the obligation on the publishers, but on the entire book chain, so that the content is accessible from the outset. So when an ebook will be accessible to people with normal eyesight, it will be also accessible with people with visual impairment, but also people who would have other type of disabilities. Hence, it's putting this, it's an enormous work. So this is why it's quite extraordinary in Europe that there's a 5 years transition from the adoption last year in 2019 to June 2025, so that in June 2025, all ebooks that will be sold on the European Union, whether they are European books or whether they are Indonesian books that would be sold in the European Union, will have to be made accessible. All books. There are 2 exceptions to that. If it's a disproportionate burden for the publisher or anyone in the book chain to provide that services to people who would want to access it. And the other caveat is for micro enterprises, they don't have the same obligation. However, I think that we will all agree on this call, if we manage to mainstream accessibility enough, even micro enterprises for many books will be able to provide and to fulfill most of the requirements. So that's on a nutshell the difference between Marrakesh. Marrakesh is an exception to copyright. This is an obligation on publishers, but also on booksellers and on e-book devices. But it's kind of opening us also to new markets, which is, I believe, a good thing.
Thank you very much. I know it's hard to put it in a nutshell, but do the others want to add something to it?
I do agree. I think it was a good description of the differences between these two type of things.
If you wanted the requirement, oh, sorry, Christina, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to highlight the relevance of the concept of born accessible. That is a completely revolution from what happens now. And I think this is very, very important.
Christina, you were asking about the requirements, and that I cannot do in a nutshell.
No.
So I prepared 2 slides,
Yes.
which are already themselves somehow extracted from the directive. I don't know if do I have to do it, or are you? Can you do it?
I can share the screen and the slides with the
because
with
then
the
the publishers will see what sort of requirements
I will
are
share it now.
because contrary to
can you see it? Sorry.
I can see it.
Wonderful. So it's on for you. Yeah.
So it's, I mean, the first, there's only 2 slides, so don't be worried. The first is about the definitions. So what's an ebook? An ebook, it's an electronic version of a book that can be accessed, navigated, and or read. And when we were discussing the directive, we also insisted that you can have ebooks that are accessible. You have to make also, it has to be possible also to have e-readers that make that ebook accessible. So the directive doesn't only covers ebooks, it covers also e-readers. And if we look in the second slide, which there's far more, then comes the requirements. So I'm not going to read them all. I think that you can share them with the participants of this seminar. I think it's really important that these are requirements for services, because an ebook in European law is considered as a service. There are general requirements. So the general requirement is that it has to be available to more than one sensory channel, and that, of course, you have to present the content in an understandable way so that people can use it easily, and it also that you can generate alternative assistive formats. But there are also requirements that are related to ebooks, and when there is an ebook that would have some element of audio in addition to the text, we have to provide synchronized text and audio. We cannot have technology, protective technology. We use a technology in order to make sure that the books are to limit as much as we can the piracy, but those digital rights management technology cannot block accessibility feature. The person accessing the work must have choice in the presentation of content. There has to be alternative rendition with different types of font and etc. And last but definitely not least, they have to be discoverable. So whoever works on the metadata has to have the right information on the metadata so that the people can know about accessibility. In the read the full text, if you were able to click on it, then you would have the text, the actual text of the directive. So there you'll have the full list. It's generally the list, but I skipped a few things in order to make it on one page, so it was readable. So it's quite a lot of requirements. It's quite a lot of requirements on the publishers.
Yeah, it is. And so we are back in the, we see each other. Thomas is not, I think the screen sharing. Yeah, he's back, but he has to unmute himself now. So, yeah. what I find also very important. So thank you very much, Anne, for this list of requirements and for your explanations. And you pointed out the side of the publishers, but it's also worth mentioning that the rest of the value chain is concerned too. Maybe you have 2 words on this too.
Well, it's just that, again, this was probably to a certain extent our fault, but we explained to the European Commission that in order to allow someone to access a book that would be accessible itself, he has to access the website, he or she has to access the banking details and all those things. So within the chain, definitely the booksellers, but also the e-reader manufacturers have to make sure that both their interface and their devices are accessible.
Yeah, thank you. Is there an addition from Italy or from Germany to this? No. So thank you, Anne. And we see that we do have the legal framework now. You followed it very closely with FEP towards the European institution. And what is your and FEP's role now in the process? Is there anything left to do for you now?
So there's quite a lot of things, actually. Thank you for asking. First of all, the Commission has still something to do. It has to decide whether it asks the European standardization body to work on a standard. That would be the standard for accessibility for ebooks, or to do technical specification, or to do nothing. And it is absolutely indispensable for us, and we've been working with experts such as Christina that the Commission doesn't start a long and probably dangerous standardization process that could go outside of the standards that the industry is already using and which are open standard. So we're working on the Commission to make them aware that we have a standard, and that standard, if you can't ask the publishers to be ready in June 2025, if you have a standard that arrives in, I don't know, 2023, that's going to be impossible, and everyone has to change their process. The second thing, and I think it's also important, and it's of course our role, but also your role as a German Publisher Association or the Italian Association or all of the association, is to raise awareness with publishers and also to see how we can coordinate with the organizations serving our natural partners that we have always worked with, but to make them aware of the accessible books and to find solutions for those books which will not be accessible. So the work isn't over, and we hope we can continue working with the Frankfurt Book Fair and with all of our members to increase awareness.
Yes, thank you very much. And I can say that as a member, we are very happy to work with you all and for the support you give to us. So thank you very much, Anne, and thanks for staying with us now. I would like to introduce Professor Dr. Thomas Kalisch, Director of the German Center for Accessible Reading and Delegate at the European Blind Union. I'm very happy to meet you here today, Thomas.
Hello, Christina. Hello. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
Let me comment shortly on this, what Anna says.
Yes, please.
I do absolutely agree that we should look for a solution that works fine, which works and helps the publishers to solve this amount of work we have to do. So we see it as the European Blind Union, we see it in the same way, that we more look for a technical standard, not standard, sorry, technical specification, and not to try to work too hard on a standard, which takes a lot of time. If we have a good technical specification that fulfills the needs for the people who are print disabled, we solve the problems. I mean, maybe we get becoming more quicker and have a better solution. The second point is to work together, to encourage the publishers and the booksellers to start now in thinking of this process of accessibility. The amount of work was already mentioned in the presentation before my short talk here. And I just want to make a mark on this and say that it helps all. It will help all. It will help publishers to find new customers. For example, blind people who cannot buy at the moment books because the books are not accessible, the website, the banking is not accessible. If we solve this problem, then you will have more customers. Thinking of elder people, we running in the time there, we have a lot of older people who have becoming to the age reading disabilities. They need to have accessible material, digital devices where they can change the color of the fonts and the size of the fonts, and this all helps. It's helpful for all. It's a amount of work, but it helps all. This is my second important message. For me, I want to say by myself, I'm blind. I'm a computer scientist. I have the pleasure to work in the Reading Accessibility Center for 20 years. And now I see that we have the technology in our hand, is publishing technology, common technology used in the internet and the World Wide Web. And we can work together with the publishers and the booksellers to solve this problem, to make everything which is digitally available, to make digitally also accessible available. And this is a wonderful target. And in Europe, we have a good framework with the European Accessibility Act to go this way. We have 5 years to do. And so we want to encourage the publishers to start now thinking of this process. And I want to mention and say, so we want to go with you. We are the experts. So I'm for myself a blind person. I can tell you that I use Braille on print. I can use large print books, but I mostly use smartphones, tablets, or PCs. These machines runs with text-to-speech engines. The text is narrated to me, and I also can plug a Braille display on my smartphone or on my PC. And with this kind of devices, I'm able to read all materials which is accessible, which comes from publishers, from booksellers I can buy. And we have the future in our hand to change it and to make it better. And we have also the knowledge how to make this process smooth and how to have the user needs in mind to bring good accessibility to the customers, to the users in the libraries, and have good material. So make more reading material accessible than we have at the moment.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, the challenges are still there for visually impaired persons, but we do have the technical solutions at our hand. We do have the obligations coming from the European Accessibility Act, and we are all ready to cooperate, to collaborate, and to help each other. I will come back later on how we are proceeding and also on our cooperation. We plan and we have already in Germany. Maybe just a few words about the German Center for Accessible Reading. Can you describe what you do with your team there?
Yes, thank you. I would love to describe it. We're one of these organizations is one in Germany, so we work together in producing materials. It was mentioned the Marrakesh Treaty. On this Marrakesh Treaty, we are allowed to have this exception rule in the copyright law, and we produce Braille books, and we produce audiobooks, and we produce also accessible digital content. That means that we scanning books from the publishers, that we translate it into Braille, that we producing good narration by good narrators, so that we produce good digital text, which is well formatted and good navigable. And this all this work is done in a reading center that I'm the head of here in Germany. But we have more than these reading centers here in Germany. We have also reading centers which help make more stuff accessible in the United States, in Asia, in India, in Japan. And I want to mention that we work together internationally. And I just have to mention certainly Italy. So we work together in this arena, which is called the DAISY Consortium, Digital Accessible Information System, which is an association of centers for reading accessibility, or for reading accessible reading centers, worldwide association, in which we have developed tools, standards and technology to make more accessible happens, especially in the digital arena. In the ebook market, EPUB 3 is a format which is brightly supported by tools from the DAISY Consortium. And we work together, and working together with the publishers, that means then if publishers working with these format, if working with XML technology, crossover publishing technology, so we can work with them together how we can produce good Braille, good large print, or good digital content, which is accessible for everybody who has a print disability.
Thank you very much. It's a very impressive work you do in Leipzig, and whoever comes to Leipzig should visit the German Center. I was very impressed by my interest. Yes. So thank you. Yeah. And thank you very much, Thomas. As always, it's a great pleasure to talking to you and listening to you. I think I don't exaggerate when introducing Cristina Musinelli as one of the pioneers and masterminds in Europe when it comes to accessibility. Cristina is the director of Fondationalia in Milan, that aims to support and guide publishers and other partners in the book sector and beyond on their way to accessibility. So welcome, Cristina. We see that you already shared the screen with us. Welcome to our session. I can't hear you at the moment.
Unfold.
It's very.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. Now we hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. I have to say that it's Unfold that I have been involved in accessibility so strongly, because she was the one for the first involved me in a European project some years ago. So thanks, Anne. We are a quite strange organization as a LIA Foundation, because we had been created by the Italian Publishers Association in collaboration with the Italian Blind Union since the really beginning of our history. And now we also have other organizations representing the Italian dyslexic people, and also a specialist organization that is similar to the one who is managed by Professor Kalish. So we combine many different expertise, and our mission is to promote books and reading to any kind of devices and technology, and especially for people who have different difficulties in accessing printed books, using especially technology and innovation. What we really believe is that we must work on the basis of collaboration and mutual trust. We collect publishing industry, all the most important Italian publishers are members of the foundation, but we also have very small organization. We have, for example, one publisher who is specialized in sailing books, and they are very, very niche oriented. So it's not just for big trade publisher. We work also with educational publisher, academic publisher. So the European Accessibility Act will impact all the kind of segment in the publishing industry. We work with an organization representing visually impaired people, but also with specialist organization. because I think that it will be very important to share the different knowledge that each of these organizations has. For example, one of the big issue in the production of accessible books is the image description. To describe images is not to make a normal description for people who can read it, but is to describe also the content of the images. And this is something that is very useful to work with specialist organizations because they have a lot of knowledge in that. And the third pillar of our strategy is to work on the standards. So we don't invent any specification or any proprietary elements, but we work on the international open standard. We are part of the most important organization in this field. We are part of W3C, we are part of DAISY Consortium. We work with a French organization that is Edier Lab, that is focused on the production of reading solution and tool for the production of reading solution. And this is the other element that we think it's really, really important. The idea is to support, and we are working with the publisher in Italy, but also abroad, to support the creation of a fully accessible digital ecosystem, where born accessible publication can be then produced in the traditional workflow, distributed in accessible retailers. It could be online store, or could be a library platform, or a proprietary platform of a publisher, and can also provide information to the end user to understand all the accessibility feature of the content they want to access. To do this, we do many different things. The first activity that we have done in Italy, and I think is one of the most important at the beginning of the process, is to create awareness, to make people understand that which are the problems and the advantages that digital publication and accessibility can give, in particular to visually impaired people, but also to everybody, because you have to remember that accessible means quality. An accessible website or an accessible publication is better for everyone. And to do this, we do some kind of training activities, but we also try to move on emotional event, because we would really like people put it themselves in the feet of the people who cannot access the content. So we have, for example, prepared a very short video that is available on our website. I will send a link where you can understand which are the advantages and the problems. We have a catalog of more than 26,000 accessible books created in accessible format since the beginning by the Italian publisher. And this is very, very important. We also teach the publisher how to include accessibility in the traditional production process. It can be done with a specific knowledge, and you don't need any exoteric information. You can use InDesign, you can use XML workflow, and you can use it internally, or you can ask to do it to your external supplier. And we also can do the check of the accessibility of what we have produced using the tool that was cited previously by Professor Kalish. There are some tools like EPUB check that everyone in the digital publishing industry knows, because it's a tool that is used to check the EPUB file before delivering to the different retailer. And there are other tools like ACE that is specifically created for the verification of the accessibility. And also organizations like ours that can work with you to make you able to do this, and also can also make the other element that is important, especially in the European Accessibility Act, who can certify and validate the work that you have done. So, for example, we provide our publisher with a small logo, so everyone can know that the title has been assessed by us as accessible. And this logo can be displayed in the retailer store, in the online store, in the publisher website. Training is key. We have created a tailor-made programs of different kind of training programs. Some are addressed to the management with the goal to create awareness and to make accessibility a strategy within the publishing industry. It cannot be done only by the production people, you also need to move the marketing people on understanding accessibility. If you produce accessible content, you should have a customer care able to answer to the question of visually impaired people who access your content or your platform. So there is a strategic training, but we also have very technical detailed training for people who work in the press or for people who work in the distribution, for example, for the production and distribution of metadata describing to a first funding from the Ministry of Culture of Italy, a platform that is the one we use to exchange of the file for the certification and verification and process. And this include all the tools that I described before and can be used also by third party to do the kind of work that we do for the Italian publisher. The other element is to make accessibility audit of the platform, the website and the app. Also here, the standards are not proprietary. You should rely on the W3C WCAG standard that are the one internationally used. And you can be sure that your website will be compliant with the Accessibility Act requirement. We offer also other services that we thought was useful for the support the publishing industry. We provide guidelines that are technical guidelines for the people attending our training course. We have an help desk support. If a publisher starts addressing accessibility and they have doubt while working in autonomy, they can ask a question and they get information back. And also we can provide templates so that the publisher can speed up the production, having an accessible template since the beginning. Christina asked me to give you a suggestion, and I think the best suggestion is don't reinvent the wheel. There are a lot of things that has already been done. We can build on what has already been done and on the experience of other different organizations. So feel free to contact us, but I think all the other people attending the seminar, and I think we will be very happy to work with you and to collaborate for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina. It's really an impressive work you do at Fondationalia, and it's also for us, it's so helpful to use your experience and your work. I can recommend to go on the website of Fondationalia, and there is a huge also an offer, information offer in English, and this might be very interesting for you who are following us. As you said, you also have international corporations. We do have one. We might in the future. I will come back to it in a second, but maybe say a few words about. It's not only Germany, but you are also active in Canada, just to have an idea that you are also on an international.
Yes, as I told, we don't. We are based on international standards, so accessibility is the same all over the world.
Yeah.
So what we do can be applied to different situations. So, for example, in Canada, in this moment, there is a strong push from the government to move on accessibility. They also have some funding. So we have been asked by an organization that is working in the publishing industry to give them information about the Accessibility Act, the requirement, because it's important to say that not only European publishers and retailers, but everyone who wants to sell in Europe should comply with the accessibility requirements. So, for example, Canadian organizations like Kobo or US publisher, if they want to sell their ebooks or their devices in Europe, should comply. So this is very important. We are working with some Canadians. We have done some training courses to WIPO and also to the publication office of the European Commission. So because the basic of the accessibility is the same because it's based on international standard.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you very much, Christina. I just wanted to briefly mention that my association, the German Publishers and Booksellers Association, are having a cooperation with you, Fondationalia, and the German Center for Accessible Reading. So with you, Thomas, we will work together on a manual that covers all the aspects of the EAA, a manual that can be used towards our members, but also to other partners and third parties like politicians. And we very much build on your experience and your previous work on this. And you said it before, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, and that's what we do, we cooperate. I was asked by the organizers to explain also a bit how we at the German Publishers and Booksellers Association are preparing our members for the journey towards 2025. And you will see it's also, it was mentioned before, I mean, we see 25 as being tomorrow, and we, what we need now is the awareness building process in the industry and the support of this process. So we are launching a webinar series, we are preparing an information pool on our website, we are trying to get the topic in every committee meeting within the association and also in the trade journals. We plan then to launch a task force with experts coming from our membership. And this task force should be really able to get into detail about the various aspects of the various and diverse aspects of the of accessibility. So at this stage, it's awareness building, and on the long run, we want to offer the services, advices, and information our members will need. We definitely want to keep on working with on the network with the members and partners who might already have more experience that, for example, with you, Fondationalia. And what we consider key is the very good cooperation and exchange with the German Center for Accessible Reading with Thomas and his team. So before we close the session, please let me ask a final question, and I want to invite you to answer it in less than 1 minute. What would be, from your point of view, the best advice at this stage to partners and colleagues in Asia Pacific? I mean, you mentioned it in your presentations already, what your focuses are and what you advise, but maybe in one sentence, in 2 sentences, what is your advice? And Anne, please go ahead with your contribution and unmute yourself. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I would say first advice, go and see the website of Fondationalia and read the English part. Prepare yourself. Not only you are doing the right thing, but also you are improving the quality of service that you're giving to the entire population of readers. So it takes time. It doesn't come in easy, but once you are in it, you're going to have more readers and readers who will be very satisfied by the quality of your content. Especially, I would say, we always think of books about literature, but it's even more important for all the reference books, all the education books. And for those, there was really an added value in accessibility. So it's a win-win situation.
Very good. So win-win. And then Thomas, please.
Yes, thank you. As a delegate of the European Blind Union, I would say look for your local organization in your countries. I'm sure we will have, there is a World Blind Union, and there will be in the countries organizations from people who have reading disabilities. It was also mentioned people with dyslexia. Get in contact with these organizations. Look for the DAISY Consortium, for the LIA website, and see how is the best way looking to work together and find solutions. Start now. do not wait until it is too late. So I think it's early to start and get in contact with the people who are the new customer groups and learn from them what can you improve on your services to make more books accessible for all people.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Christina, it's your turn.
First of all, not be scared. We have given you a lot of information, but you need to consider this a process. So you need to start the journey. So as soon as you start, the better it is, and you will find a lot of good companions in the journey.
Thank you very much. This is very constructive. This is very positive and very clear. Thank you for this. I want to add that the bios and the links to the respective institutions of the speakers can be found online at jactent.com. And please check out the very informative webinar around accessibility held at Frankfurt Book Fair 2020, co-organized by FEP and IPA. It can be found on the website of Frankfurt Book Fair. And it enlightens us about the different stages of the value chain and the requirements and obligations of the industry. So goodbye to everyone. See you soon and stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Dengan informasi terkini, menjadi sumber referensi dan inspirasi di setiap aktivitas. Melalui news video portal, segala informasi dapat disajikan cepat, akurat, dan lengkap. Dengan kekuatan teknologi digital, Medcom.id hadir dengan berita pilihan yang dikemas secara menarik. Medcom.id, digitally inspire people.
Sudah 15 menit, masih kejebak macet.
Tenang, daripada emosi, 15 menit Anda jadi lebih berharga kalau bersama saya.
15 Minutes, setiap Rabu, jam 6 sore lewat 45 menit. Mediaindonesia.com hadir dengan opini cerdas dan narasumber kredibel, mudah diakses, informasi berkualitas ada di genggaman Anda. Klik di browser Anda www.mediaindonesia.com dan temukan pandangan berbeda, karena fakta bisa sama, sudut pandang boleh beda. Mediaindonesia.com, views and news.
Dalam setiap denyut kota, saya selalu menjadi saksinya. Disiarkan lebih dari 20 televisi jaringan Jawa Post Group. Jawa Post TV, paling Indonesia. Kebebasan pers dan gelombang era digital menghadirkan ribuan bahkan jutaan informasi dan data setiap harinya. Beragam data dan informasi berserak di berbagai tempat seiring dengan perubahan dunia yang bergerak begitu cepat. Media-media baru pun bermunculan, namun kualitas informasi seolah tak lagi menjadi prioritas. Bahkan, tak sedikit yang abai pada etika jurnalisme. Untuk menjawab tantangan itu, Kata Data hadir sejak April 2012 sebagai portal media di bidang ekonomi dan bisnis. Beragam sektor diulas mulai dari finansial, energi, pangan, hingga industri kreatif dan digital. Artikel mendalam dan komprehensif dengan sajian infografik yang menarik menjadi karakter utama dari Kata Data. Kata Data berikhtiar untuk terus menyajikan beragam informasi berkualitas untuk kemajuan negeri dan untuk kepentingan bisnis Anda. Kami percaya demokrasi yang sehat tumbuh dari kehadiran informasi dan data yang akurat.
Kalau bicara pakai data.
Hidup terlalu pendek untuk membiarkan pemikiran-pemikiranmu, ide-idemu terdiam begitu saja. Untuk berubah, kita perlu melangkah. Dan langkah itu lahir dari sebuah inspirasi. Republika, start moving.